Kathy and myself, is we wanted an opportunity to sit down with those on a couple different levels that are running candidates, including the state, the city, and the county levels. We decided to start with the city level, and that's going to be tonight. We did initially email everybody that we had on the list, and then follow-up calls placed to all of them. A couple of them, especially the ones currently seated, are not going to be here tonight due to previous engagement with the CNFR Rodeo. But we did have Michael Ford, Wayne Healy, Bob Hawkins, Amanda Huckabee, R.C. Johnson, Daniel Sandoval, Scott Miller, Todd Murphy, Charlie Powell, Ursula Wilkerson, Steve Cagey, William Street, and Christopher Walsh all said they were not going to be here or just not return our calls or emails altogether.
Go figure.
So we did have the two gentlemen sitting to my right, Jesse Morgan and Darren Krell. They have decided to join us, and we really do appreciate their time here tonight for this kind of forum. I wanted to respectively go over a couple of rules, give you guys some information on what we're going to be doing, and kind of let you know this is not a debate format, so we're not going to address discuss anything that one of the other candidates has said. This is just an opportunity for us to hear your answers to some of the questions that we find are pretty close to what we want to see happen on the city level. So we want to have you guys answer with details that are only pertinent to the subject question. So stick to the question. These questions have been formulated by us and a few people that we consulted with. They're all here. We haven't revealed these or given them to anybody in advance, so neither of you guys have solved these questions in advance. There's going to be a time allowed to answer them, and then when we do get to about 20 seconds, you can see a yellow sign right there from the guy in the red that says 20 seconds. At that point, if you can't finish your comments or your answer in that amount of time, I'm just going to go ahead and interject, and we're going to move on. And then from the audience, I'd like to ask a couple things. Respectfully, no comments or anything in support or against anything that they say at this time. Privately, that's fine. We just want to keep moving on and stay on topic. So we're not going to kind of interject and have discussion from the audience. However, if you do have a question or something that comes up, depending on the amount of time we have for them to complete and answer the questions, we might open it up to some audience questions. So write them down. I encourage you to write them down. Maybe if you can pass them over to Bob, that way we can get them and go through them quickly and get those questions answered. So do fill that out. So with that, I kind of wanted to head into the first question. What I'll do, I'll just start with Jesse, and then on the second question, we'll start with you. But first, I just want to know who you guys are and why you guys chose to run this race. So if you can take about 2 minutes to do that each. That'd be great.
Would you like me to stand up at the podium or just sit down?
Whatever's more comfortable. We got 12 questions, so.
All right, well, I'll sit right here. Just to begin, my name is Jesse Morgan. Some of you may know me. I have been a part of the Republican Party here in town since 2013, first as an elected member at large, and then in 2014 elected precinct person in 1-9. And now it just feels right to run for city council. It's the same platform of why I got involved in the first place, which was I worked for a little bit on the East Coast, and I saw how much they were getting taxed from 2010 to 2012, and they had nothing to show for it, no infrastructure. They're, of course, hard left, and you can certainly see what their economy and what their state has succumbed to that. And it's from them not either being involved or just not knowing what they should stand for and where their money should go, as opposed to city officials that make over six-figure salaries for not doing a whole lot, and of course having an assistant and an assistant for an assistant. So when I moved back, I wanted to get involved and wanted to make sure that Wyoming didn't turn into what West Virginia was like and other states on the East Coast. And so now I'm just building on that main platform, my main base, and I want to get involved, and I want to be a part of this community and mainly have a little bit more direction on where our taxpayer dollars are going. There's a lot of special projects that are going on, and all of you are aware that this is the second year of a downturn that we're in, and it's pretty bad, and there's still a lot of spending going on. So there's no end in sight for what's happening, and we're lucky that we have a special reserve fund in place. So we're fortunate, but we need to be in a better position.
That could be questions. Just who you are.
Hello, my name is Darren Kroll. I'm a candidate for Ward 2, and the reason who I am, I was a police officer here for 19 years. I retired last year as a sergeant in the Casper Police Department. I've been here for 20 years. I am currently now an investigator for the state of Wyoming, working in the Public Defender's Office. So like my friends all tell me, I switched to the dark side, but it's good. So I enjoy it very much. The reason I'm running, I've always been interested in getting, when my career as a police officer was over, to get into politics at the local level. I've always wanted to run for city council, and you're not allowed to as a city employee. And this is the first election since I retired. And so what I really want to do is, I've served the citizens of Casper for 19 years, and I wanted to continue doing that, and that's why I'm running. The next question first.
Yeah, let me announce it. So the next question I'm going to ask is, as a member of City Council, how would you have approached, and what reasoning would you use, and what outcome would you have advocated for in the recent discussion regarding prayer before the City Council meetings? We're going to do 2 minutes for each candidate. Starting.
Prayer, the City Council is, I believe, is all-inclusive. Every citizen has a right to go to a City Council meeting, and I think that everybody should feel comfortable going to a City Council meeting, because we are representative of the city of Casper. I'm not an advocate for prayer before City Council meetings, because I believe that people can be excluded. In the City Council meeting, the City Council is there to, like I said, to represent the people. Private prayer I'm not opposed to, but as an organized function of the City Council, I'm not in favor of that.
Well, I've been watching a lot of City Council meetings lately, and I saw this video in particular, and the actually same group of guys that did bring it up were there last Tuesday, and also read a verse, Psalm 49. I'm not sure if you were there or happened to see it on TV. But getting to your question, there's a lot of lawsuits that occur with separation of church and state. I think all of us are fully aware of what separation of church and state means, and it certainly has no quarrel against somebody saying God. They do speak have the Pledge of Allegiance, which mentions God. There's nothing wrong with that. The City Council, I think, may have made the right choice of not having an invocation before a meeting, just because the way things are, there's no protection against frivolous lawsuits, which I think this is one. They did bring up a Supreme Court ruling that did vote in favor of them actually being able to have a prayer before a City Council meeting, I think in New York or somewhere back east. But me personally, I think if a group feels strongly about it, it wouldn't take anything for a City Council person to just go outside on the sidewalk and have a prayer with them before the meeting, and then go right back in and start with the Pledge of Allegiance and begin proceeding with the City Council meeting.
Good answer.
All right, third question. As a member of the city council, how would you have approached, what reasoning would you use, and what outcome would you have advocated for in the recent approval of the $5.3 million expansion and renovation of Pogadon Ski Area, including the discussion regarding turning that same area into a city park or under the division of city parks?
Just at the beginning, we're saying the ruling or standpoint.
How would you have approached? What reasoning would you use? And what outcome would you have advocated for if you were currently sitting?
If I was currently sitting on the city council, I would approach that just with my constituents that reside in Ward 1. Part of my literature just wants more transparency and, of course, spending accountability. Right now, as I mentioned earlier, this is the second year of a downturn. So special projects that involve our taxpayer dollars, granted this is the optional 1 cent tax, but that money can still be saved and put to something else. But anyways, I would have definitely reconsidered, spoke about it, and hopefully got more input from the public. I think it's important to get more people involved. A lot of people, they want to be involved or they have an opinion about it, but unfortunately, they don't go to the meetings, they don't talk to their representative, and a lot of people don't have faith in their representative. So hopefully I could kind of bridge that gap, speak to my constituents, and really just be their voice, and at the end of the day, have more money in the bank because this, it can't go on. Parks and more buildings.
This is a little hard because he basically said everything I wanted to say. I don't agree with that. As you know, now with the economic downturn that we're experiencing, these projects need to be reevaluated, and I don't believe that we need to be spending this type of money right now until we figure out where Casper is going to be, how much revenue we're going to have, because state revenue is down, sales tax is down, all income, all revenue is down. And I'm not an advocate of spending over $5 million for a ski resort. Fiscal responsibility is what we need right now, and I believe that I would, like Jesse said, is talk to the people in the ward, get input, get out there and get the information from the people, because I haven't heard anybody support that. So that's what I would do.
Okay.
All right, so our fourth question, and it's going to be a 2-minute question. Recently, a plan to swap land near the bridle trail for land near 21st and Outer Drive was canceled. And before the cancellation, there was an overwhelming city council support. Where would you have stood on that land swap and why?
I wouldn't have been in favor of that. I think the bridle trail is a very important piece of Casper. And personally, my wife hikes that bridle trail all the time, so she probably would have been very upset with me if I would have supported that. I believe we need the access. We have to have access and recreation for our citizens, and that's an important piece. So I wouldn't have been in favor of that.
Not too much to say on this one. Unfortunately, I don't know too much about the land swap or what that entailed exactly. So I would have to actually get more information on that one. Sorry, I don't have a good answer.
The 5th question, a 2-minute question. What, in your words, is the role of the city government and your position within that role of being a city council member?
Well, being a city council member, that's for me going to be, approving a budget, helping with the budget, and having a voice for the people that reside within my ward. Overstepping and overreaching, I guess as Kathy also mentioned, backing specific businesses, obviously isn't something that capitalism is based on, and it doesn't work, and it's an overreach of government to be more specific. So my role would be basically being a voice for those that reside within my ward. I have conservative values, but unfortunately, if those don't coincide with the people that are voted with me, I may not be able to stick completely to those values, but at the end of the day, the Constitution is the #1 thing that I have to defend before it comes to anything like that. So my thing is just doing what voters appreciate or want, and going from there.
And what is the role of the city?
When you're asking your questions, can you speak loud enough so I can get you on audio?
I'm just repeating the question.
Okay.
Same question.
So what is the role of?
What is the role of the city government, and what is your role within the city?
The role of city government is to provide services to the citizens of Casper. That's basically what the city does. The city picks up the garbage. They, supply water. They police. They have fire. That's the role, I believe, of what the city government is for, is to provide services to our citizens. And as a member of the council, it would be my responsibility to make sure that that level of service is not diminished, especially in this economic downturn. We all know that VH is talking about hiring freezes. They're not replacing people who are retiring. So the city employees are going to be asked to do more with less people. And I've been there. I've done that. Like I said, I worked for the city for 19 years, over 19 years, as a police officer and an equipment operator. So as a council member, my role would be to make sure that the services are still provided to our citizens. That is the most important thing, I believe, that the city council is supposed to do, is manage that.
So 2-minute question, our sixth question. Within our county, who is directly responsible for the preservation and enforcement of the U.S. Constitution within our county?
Well, within our county, I believe it would be, well, the citizens hopefully, but in a position that's paid for by our county, I guess would be our sheriff. The sheriff has a pretty important role to uphold the citizens. That's not really the federal government, so that's my answer.
So whose job is it to uphold the Constitution, right?
And preservation and enforcement.
That I believe also it is the law enforcement. They when you're a police officer, you work daily with the Constitution, because you can't violate somebody's constitutional rights. So law enforcement is a protector of the Constitution, and the sheriff, of course. Everyone said law enforcement. But also our city council, our city government, we have to make sure that we don't create bad laws and things like that. So, okay.
I'm actually going to extend a little bit of questioning on that one. What tools, what resources, you guys both basically answered law enforcement and more specifically the sheriff. What tools, what resources does the sheriff have at his disposal to enforce those laws? How can he use those? What abilities could be used by the sheriff to do that?
You kind of lost me on that one. What abilities does the sheriff have?
What can the sheriff do to enforce the Constitution within his county?
You lost me on that one. I'm sorry. Training of the officers. They need to get continual training. Especially we have a large influx of new officers in the city, and they need to have continual training to help them realize when they can and can't search and do things like that.
My answer is, as far as what I think, it's pretty vague. I don't know what degree of enforcement that the sheriff or law enforcement would use to uphold the Constitution. I guess it depends on what's happening around the city. As far as what tools are at their disposal, I mean, you can certainly see an arsenal of all kinds of fancy trucks, an MRAP, and other things like that. So, without more specific details on what you're trying to get at, I can't really answer.
Maybe we'll revisit that one if there's encourage the audience to think of some situations or something we might be able to use as an example to maybe find an answer. We're going to move on though to our 7th question. What are the benefits, and this is going to be a 2-minute question, Bob, what are the benefits to taking available grant money from the federal level, as well as the flip side of that, what are the drawbacks to taking that same federal money?
The benefits, of course, of taking money from the federal government, it's money that goes to projects that we could use for our schools, for example, and many other things. But the drawbacks, as you see of some of the states of Florida and down south, is they're being held almost at hostage just for having signs on a bathroom that they don't agree with. So now they're not agreeing with ruling by this administration, and now they're having all of this money that they're normally depend on for a budget on the state level that they're trying to balance and pay teachers with and infrastructure, and they're being held liable. So the drawbacks, of course, is if you have an administration that has its own agenda that you don't agree with, they hold you hostage to that. And of course, voters, teachers, everybody else, they get involved and they get very angry at that, where they're looking at pay cuts or not having the proper funding for their own job that they depend on every year. So that would be the drawback, and of course the benefit.
Grants can be very useful. The police department uses grants yearly for like DUI enforcement, things like that. Officers sign up for extra shifts, and that money is paid for by grants. So it's not an expense to the city. We also do it for alcohol, tobacco. We'll send a 16-year-old into a convenience store to try and buy a pack of cigarettes, and you'll be surprised how many actually sell them to them. So grants can be useful, but you have to be smart about grants. You can't just take every grant that's out there, because it comes, like Jesse said, they come with strings. And once the government has its hooks in you, you got to play by their rules. And some places get too many grants, and then they start using them for things that, once that grant runs out, they don't have the money for anymore. So we would have to be smart. If the city decided to apply for a grant, there would have to be a lot of research done on what the grant is and what those strings are.
All right, number 8, another 2-minute question. With mounting fiscal concerns, would raising taxes locally be a good solution? And if you say no, what could be a possible solution to overcoming those?
Let's make sure.
With the financial situation, in the long term, is raising taxes going to be a good solution to this? And if you say no, what would be the long-term solution?
I don't believe right now raising taxes is a solution. We have to be more prudent with our money. We have $5 million just went to Hogadon. We got another, $5 million for this other project. Brakes need to be put on those projects right now, like I talked about earlier, until we know our financial situation in a few years. We're just getting into it right now. We're seeing it. We're starting to feel it. We can see it in how many homes are for sale around town. Last year, a year and a half ago, you couldn't find a place to live in Casper. So, long-term, you know, I never say never. I'm not George Bush, you know, read my lips, no new taxes. We would have to make sure that we explore all options before we just start raising taxes on people.
Pretty much in the same boat here. There's a lot of things that we use the optional 1 cent sales tax that we already have in place, and just taking out some of the things that are for leisure services in particular, or parks and other recreation items. You could remove that and not have to put the burden on the taxpayers that are already voting in an optional 1 cent sales tax. So when times are tough, we got to draw back a little bit. Again, postpone or reconsider, or just go out to the voter like everyone here and say, hey, this is what's coming up. Here's where the money's planning on coming from. Do you agree with it? And at the end of the day, if they don't agree with it, obviously, then you can't go for it. If we get plenty of money from other places, we're lucky enough to have so many minerals within this state, whether it be coal, oil, or natural gas, that we get a big check from the state every year that's dispersed among the rest of the counties that we can use at our discretion. So I don't agree with raising taxes. There's no need for it right now. Hopefully.